Imagine walking into a hospital with a broken leg, only to disappear without a trace. Imagine calling your brother's phone and hearing a complete stranger answer. Now imagine living your entire childhood hidden away from the world, just a few hundred feet from people who had no idea you even existed. These are not scenes from a horror movie. They are real cases that left investigators searching for answers and communities completely shocked. In today's episode, we'll uncover 3 of the most unbelievable true crime mysteries involving people found or discovered in places no one would ever expect. Each story is stranger than the last, filled with disturbing twists, unanswered questions, and discoveries that seem almost impossible to believe. Stay with me until the end, because the final case is so shocking that many people still struggle to understand how it happened. If you enjoy true crime, unsolved mysteries, and real stories that will keep you thinking long after the video ends, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another mystery. Now, dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin with a man who walked into a hospital looking for help, but was later found in one of the last places anyone would have thought to look. Hospitals are supposed to be places of healing. People go there expecting doctors and nurses to help them recover and return home safely. But in May 2019, one South African hospital became the center of a mystery that would leave an entire country asking one terrifying question: how can someone disappear inside a hospital without anyone noticing? The man at the center of this mystery was Sandile Sibiya, a 53-year-old construction worker from Durban, South Africa. Friends and family described him as hardworking, independent, and healthy. Like many construction workers, he was used to physical labor and long days on the job. One day, everything changed. While working, Sandile suffered a serious injury to his right leg. The pain was so intense that he knew he needed medical attention immediately. He made his way to Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital in Durban, hoping doctors could treat the injury and get him back on his feet. At first, everything seemed normal. Like every other patient, Sandile waited patiently to be seen. After spending several hours in the waiting area, doctors finally examined him and ordered an X-ray. The results were worse than he expected. Sandile had fractured his femur, the strongest bone in the human body. A broken femur is a very serious injury that usually requires specialized treatment, and in many cases, surgery. Doctors told him he could not go home. Instead, he would need to stay in the hospital while arrangements were made to transfer him to another medical facility where orthopedic specialists could continue his treatment. Although the news was disappointing, Sandile agreed. He settled into his hospital room, expecting that within a day or two he would be moved and begin his recovery. But that transfer would never happen, because before hospital staff returned to take him to his next appointment, Sandile Sibiya had vanished. And no one could explain how. When the time came to transfer Sandile to the orthopedic hospital, a nurse picked up his medical file and walked toward his room. She expected to find him resting in bed. Instead, the bed was empty. At first, no one panicked. Hospital staff assumed Sandile might have gone to the restroom, stepped into the hallway, or been taken for another routine examination. After all, hospitals are busy places, and patients are often moved from one department to another. But as the minutes passed, concern quickly turned into alarm. Doctors checked nearby rooms, nurses searched the hallways, security staff looked through every ward and waiting area. No one could find him. What made the situation even more confusing was Sandile's condition. He had a broken femur, a painful injury that makes walking extremely difficult without assistance. How could a man in that condition simply disappear? Hospital staff expanded the search. They checked stairwells. They searched elevators. They looked in storage rooms, treatment areas, and even outside the hospital building. Still, there was no sign of Sandile. Security guards were questioned. Visitors were asked if they had seen him. But nobody remembered seeing a man with a badly injured leg leaving the hospital. As hours turned into days, the mystery only deepened. Eventually, the hospital reported Sandile missing to the South African Police Service. Officers opened an official missing person investigation and began searching for answers. His family was devastated. They had brought Sandile to the hospital believing he would receive medical care. Instead, he had vanished from one of the very places that was supposed to keep him safe. Rumors quickly spread throughout Durban. Some people believed he had somehow wandered away despite his injury. Others wondered if he had become confused and gotten lost inside the large hospital. A few even suspected that something much darker had happened behind the scenes. But there was one question no one could answer. If Sandile never left the hospital, then where was he for nearly 2 weeks? That question haunted everyone involved. Then something happened that changed the investigation forever. It started with a smell so powerful that it stopped hospital staff in their tracks. Nearly 2 weeks after Sandile disappeared, life inside Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital was beginning to return to normal. The search had produced no answers. Police had no strong leads. His family was still desperately hoping he would be found alive. Then something strange began happening inside the hospital. Staff noticed an unpleasant smell drifting through parts of the building. At first, they assumed it was a plumbing problem or spoiled medical waste. Hospitals are large buildings, and unpleasant odors are not unheard of. But this smell was different. Each day, it became stronger. Soon, patients and staff alike could no longer ignore it. The odor spread through the corridors, making it difficult for people to work. Maintenance workers were asked to investigate. Following the smell from one section of the hospital to another, they eventually reached a storage area. There, they noticed something unusual. A dark liquid appeared to be dripping from the ceiling. Realizing something was seriously wrong, staff carefully removed several ceiling panels and shined flashlights into the narrow space above. What they saw left everyone frozen. Lying inside the ceiling cavity was the decomposing body of a man. Police were called immediately. The area was sealed off, and investigators arrived to examine the scene. A short time later, the heartbreaking confirmation came. The body was Sandile Sibiya, the same patient who had mysteriously disappeared from his hospital room days earlier, had somehow ended up above the ceiling of the very hospital where he had gone for treatment. The discovery shocked South Africa. His family couldn't understand how this could happen. Hospital staff were equally stunned. Investigators now faced an even bigger mystery than before. Sandile had entered the hospital alive, seeking help for a broken leg. But how had he ended up inside a ceiling space that patients were never supposed to access? Did he somehow get there on his own? Was there an accident, or had someone else been involved? Despite an intensive investigation, no clear answers emerged. Instead, the discovery raised even more disturbing questions than it answered. The discovery of Sandile's body immediately turned a missing persons case into a death investigation. Police searched the hospital from top to bottom, trying to answer one impossible question. How did a patient with a broken femur end up inside the hospital ceiling? Hospital officials insisted their security was strict. They said every entrance and exit was monitored, and patients could not simply disappear without someone noticing. That explanation only made the mystery deeper. The ceiling space where Sandile was found wasn't a place patients normally had access to. It wasn't part of any hospital ward, and there was no clear explanation for how he could have reached it alone, especially with such a serious leg injury. Investigators interviewed doctors, nurses, security guards, and other hospital staff. They looked for witnesses, reviewed available evidence, and searched for signs of foul play. Nothing provided a clear answer. Some early reports falsely claimed Sandile had been a psychiatric patient, but the hospital later denied those claims. He had come to the hospital for one reason only, to treat his broken leg. Officials promised a full investigation and said anyone found responsible for negligence or wrongdoing would be held accountable. But no evidence ever explained exactly what happened. Years later, the case remains unsolved. No one knows how Sandile entered the ceiling. No one knows whether he was alone. And no one knows what really caused his death. A man walked into a hospital expecting treatment. Instead, he became one of South Africa's most disturbing unsolved mysteries. But as strange as this case is, the next one is even more chilling. In the summer of 2018, 65-year-old Brian Egg suddenly stopped answering his phone. That alone was unusual. Brian was known by everyone in his San Francisco neighborhood. He was friendly, helpful, and rarely went a day without speaking to his family or neighbors. One day, after cleaning trash around his neighborhood as he often did, Brian walked back into his house. No one ever saw him alive again. A few weeks later, Brian's brother called to check on him. Instead of Brian answering, a stranger picked up the phone. The man introduced himself as Nate and calmly claimed Brian was out walking his dog and would call back later. That call never came. As the days turned into weeks, Brian's family grew worried. Neighbors also noticed something wasn't right. Brian's house no longer looked like his home. Two unfamiliar men were coming and going from the property as if they lived there. No one in the neighborhood had ever seen them before. When residents reported their concerns, police visited the house several times. But each time, no one answered the door. Without clear evidence, officers left. The mystery only grew deeper. Soon, the neighbors would witness something so disturbing that it would force police to return one more time. Days after the police visit, Brian's neighbors noticed something they couldn't ignore. Thick soap suds began flowing from underneath the front door. At the same time, a strong smell of bleach filled the air around the house. Then, the two strangers were seen painting parts of the front entrance, as if they were trying to hide something. Brian's family officially reported him missing, and the neighbors kept calling the police. This time, officers took the report seriously. When police returned to the house, they arrested one of the men living there. He was identified as Robert McCaffrey. Shortly afterward, they arrested a second man, Lance Silva, at a nearby hotel. Investigators discovered the two men had allegedly been using Brian's bank cards and personal information for financial transactions. But one question remained unanswered. Where was Brian Egg? Police began a full search of the house, examining every room, every closet, and every hidden space. For 4 days, detectives searched for any sign that Brian had been there. Then they opened a small storage room beneath a staircase. A terrible smell poured out. Inside the room sat a large fish tank. What detectives found inside would turn the missing person case into one of San Francisco's most horrifying homicide investigations. Detectives carefully examined the fish tank. Inside, they found human remains. The body had been dismembered, making identification difficult. After forensic testing, investigators confirmed the victim was Brian Egg. The shocking discovery devastated his family and the entire neighborhood. Police immediately ruled Brian's death a homicide. Robert McCaffrey and Lance Silva were charged with crimes including homicide, identity theft, elder abuse, and financial offenses. Investigators alleged the men had been using Brian's identity and credit cards after his disappearance. However, the case took another unexpected turn. Prosecutors later dropped the homicide charges, saying they needed more evidence before they could proceed. Although the financial charges remained, there was not enough proof to convict anyone of Brian's murder. To this day, no one has been found guilty of killing Brian Egg. His killer, or killers, remain unknown. A man disappeared from his own home. Weeks later, he was found hidden inside a fish tank beneath his staircase. It remains one of San Francisco's most disturbing unsolved homicide cases. But if you think that's unbelievable, the final case involves an entire family hidden from the outside world for years, just a short distance from their unsuspecting neighbors. In October 2019, a young man walked into a small cafe in the quiet Dutch village of Ruinerwold. He looked nervous. He barely made eye contact. He ordered several beers and drank them quickly, as if he was trying to calm himself down. The cafe owner sensed that something wasn't right. The following day, the young man returned. This time, he finally opened up. He told the cafe owner something almost impossible to believe. He said he had not been outside for 9 years. He also revealed that he had several brothers and sisters living on a nearby farm and that he was the oldest child. Then he quietly said something that changed everything. "I want to end the way we've been living." The cafe owner realized this wasn't an ordinary conversation. Believing the young man was in serious danger, he immediately called the police. The next morning, officers drove to the isolated farmhouse he had described. What they found inside would shock the entire Netherlands. When police arrived at the remote farmhouse, everything looked quiet from the outside. But inside, they uncovered a shocking secret. Hidden in a small room were several children living in complete isolation. They told officers they were all adults, but investigators quickly realized that wasn't true. The children had been taught to lie about their ages. Police identified 7 siblings, including the young man who had escaped to the cafe. They had spent years cut off from the outside world. Most of them had never gone to school. They had no friends. They had little or no contact with society. Investigators also discovered that some of the children had never been officially registered with the government. To the outside world, they had barely existed. Police removed the children from the farmhouse and took them to a safe place, where doctors immediately examined them. As investigators dug deeper, they identified 2 men connected to the property. One was the children's father. The other was a man who had been living on the farm. Authorities believed the children had been kept in isolation for years under strict control, but the investigation was only beginning. What detectives uncovered next would reveal a disturbing life of fear, control, and punishment that had remained hidden for nearly a decade. 3 people, 3 shocking discoveries. A patient found inside a hospital ceiling. A missing man discovered inside a fish tank in his own home. And a family hidden from the outside world for years. These cases remind us that some of the darkest mysteries can exist in the places we least expect. Which of these 3 stories shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true crime stories, unsolved mysteries, and unbelievable real-life cases. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next mystery.